Well, we wrote Your Money, Your Life we started in 1989. It was one particular era. It was an era when we were going into the go-go 90s. People couldn't believe that that book became a bestseller in the 90s, and it was another gilded era. But we were writing it actually for this time. We were writing it to prepare as many people as possible to be living within their means, to be out of debt, to have some savings, to be free, and to be unconstrained spiritually, emotionally, to be able to live the lives that they chose rather than the lives that they had to, because we knew we needed a lot of people sane and balanced and secure in these times, because in these times the walls are coming in. We are feeling the constraints.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. My guest today has helped to change our lives. It's Vicki Robin, who's the co-author of Your Money or Your Life, which actually we met, you and Joe Dominguez, through the seminar, the tape seminar that he had before that. And I want to start by saying we owe you a debt of gratitude, because it really did change the trajectory of our lives, and getting Robin and I to see what really mattered. A number of our Peak Moment guests, let me back up. I haven't introduced, you're a writer, you're a speaker, you do teleclasses for people, you are community activists and have been for a long while here, and you call yourself a strategic meddler, and we'll maybe find out what all that entails. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, it's good to be with you, finally.
A lot of several of our guests have just along the way in the conversation said, and we did Your Money or Life, and we shifted our lives. I'd like you to let our guests, our visitors know, what is that? How does it work? Give them a little taste
snippet.
of it.
Okay, Your Money or Your Life, I wrote that with Joe Dominguez. It first came out in 1992. It's based on a seminar that we did from 1980, which is based on a way of life we lived in the 70s, which is based on a program that he developed in the 1960s.
Wow.
For his own early retirement. He was one of those geniuses of the ordinary and of reality. He saw things just the way they were, and when people believed that something else, when people said, here's my pet rabbit, and you say, like, there is no pet rabbit, well, that was money for Joe. Everybody said money's so important, money, it was like success and fame, and he said, there is no rabbit there. He said, what's money really? And why is everybody so engaged in spending their whole lives in what he called making a dime? Because at the end of the day, you're not more alive than you were at the beginning. So you're not making a living, you're making a dying. So
A dying, yes.
So anyway, so he did this for himself. He had no intention of teaching or developing some big program and becoming famous. And I was one of the first people out of the gate to recognize, this is a way that I can not have to fit my square peg in the round hole or my round peg in the square hole of reality as it's presented to me, selling my time, talent, love, creativity to somebody else. For peanuts. Can I live a life according to my own best lights? And so I adopted it, and eventually we started teaching because people were very curious about why we didn't live the way they lived. So that's the history of it. So it's been around a long time, time-tested. As a book, it was a New York Times bestseller. It was 5 years on the Business Week bestseller list. It sold 1 million copies. I think it's in 12 or 13 languages now.
Wonderful.
And it's very, very simple and straightforward. It's a 9-step program for tracking and evaluating the flow of money and stuff through your life. Asking the question is, how am I investing my life energy, the hours of my life, to get the money that I need to buy the stuff that I have? And is how I'm investing my life energy getting me a life I love, a life I want? Is the game worth the candle? And it's a systematic way to ask that question. It's not just some sort of, you go off for a weekend with your journal and ask it. It's day by day. Your object of meditation in this is the dollars that flow through your life. and the stuff that flows through your life. So as you buy something, you know, whether it's the latte or the, you know, the new electric bicycle, I just bought a new electric bicycle.
yes.
You know, whatever you buy, you actually translate that purchase into how many hours of my life did I invest
Yes.
in this? And is this how I want to spend my life? It really cracks through the whole set of assumptions about, well, we're all going to, you know, earn and spend and earn and spend and earn and spend, and then we'll retire, and then blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
You know, there's a
yeah,
whole
yeah,
miasm around money. And we do live in a culture that encourages us to expand our desires, expand our bundle of stuff, fill our garages. People now buy things on eBay and have them delivered to their storage lockers. You know, but it's all part of that more is better mentality. So this program gives you the tools to just on a daily basis crack through those assumptions, you know, crack through that sort of pet rabbit, you know, that isn't there. And often what people do is they'll drop, if they actually follow it, you know, really integrate into their lives, they'll drop 20 to 25% of their expenses.
We did. We cut them probably close to half.
Wow.
And we realized that that question, when you look at it at the end of each month, I spent that much for my ice creams. Did I get that much time's worth of enjoyment worth it? Or as the Gazingas pins that, that Joe identified, my little pet thing that I want to spend money on. And when you start to shift to looking at what you buy in terms of the life energy it took, the hours I had to spend at work doing something I don't love and commuting and having to dress the way I was, all of the costs of doing that, it was like highlighted what really do I want to put that energy to. And for me, the carrot of saying I could retire early and not have to be doing this forever was a big carrot.
Exactly.
Big carrot.
Yeah, it was called Transforming Your Relationship with Money and Achieving Financial Independence.
That's right.
And that is a big carrot. At the same time, I don't think it's the only carrot.
Yes.
It's a big carrot. It's not the only carrot. Because for me, if people could merely pierce through the assumptions around their identity as an economic being. If I have money, I'm good. If I don't have money, I'm bad. If I have money, I'm good. Not only am I good, I'm thinner and I'm more beautiful. You know, and if I lose my job,
and people will love me.
Exactly.
And sure.
You know, if we could just shed that and see money as something that flows through our lives at our own initiation. It doesn't, and that. What makes life worth living? It's not like, oh, the best things in life are free. You know, some of them are. But what makes life worth living is some of them require money, but many of them don't. And we try to buy non-material wealth with money. We try to buy happiness by buying a car. We try to buy love by whatever, you know, by getting dressing right.
Yeah.
And so we're so confused. If people could simply, I just say that's the baseline financial independence. You could get financially independent monetarily, but if you don't go through that questioning process, it'll just evaporate. You'll go back to accumulation again.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. I think what I loved about the work, the 9 steps, is that they were all sensible and they weren't hard, and it unwound the mystery about money.
Exactly.
Just without a lot of abstract talk about it.
Right. I love how you said that. It unwound the mystery around money. That's what I think that the 9-step program does. And it's very simple. It's just, you know, you get square with, you know, how much money have I brought in my life? You do a balance sheet. But you do it because you want to discover, you know, here I am in the middle of my money life, you know, and I think, oh, every time I try to get ends to meet, somebody moves the other end. People feel stuck, a victim. And if you just settle down and take a look at what have I brought in my lifetime, what have I spent it on, how much do I have left, what's flowing through now, how much am I trading an hour of my life for, what's my real hourly wage? Honestly, let's take an honest, objective, kind, sort of ironic look at this whole process. And then you just do this over time, and you start to become aware that, well, if what a job is, it's not my identity, I'm not a victim of it, it's just what I do for money. Because I can work not for money. A lot of us do it now. You know, most of my work isn't compensated.
I understand. peak moment is basically not understood, but I work for other things.
Yeah, exactly. And
know,
it's
the
not
joy
like
me-
I don't have, I have enough at a material level so that I can spend my time working on investing my love and creativity in things that compensate me because I'm part of the larger life and I like doing them and I like to contribute. And so it just helps you to sort of parcel all that out so that money just becomes a small, necessary part of life in the world that we live in, but it's not everything.
It's not always the gating item. I mean, in our culture, you're right. We sort of think, I need to have the money in order to do what I want, to be who I want. And I loved it's like Joe just turned it on its head and said, be that loving person or that generous friend or be the person that walks dogs or whatever the be is. And you'll have what you'll have and the money will be arriving. And it wasn't magical like that.
No.
But it's like shifting the inside view of it is simply, it's a tool. The money is a tool. Like there are other tools.
Exactly.
You have. Like thinking positively, for example, is another
Yeah.
tool. Yeah.
I love that you remember that, the be do have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's so much turns on our head how we used to thinking about it.
Exactly.
If I have all this stuff, then I will be successful and popular and happy and
Right.
except the squirrel cage wheel that you both mentioned in the book, where you get a certain level, there's enough, and that was a magic word for many of us. What is enough for me?
Exactly.
Not somebody else. Not somebody else's. My enough. Because I there's things I'm willing to live without because I get more time or more chances to walk in the woods or whatever, and I liked that self-definition of it.
Yes,
of what's
exactly.
enough.
Exactly. And that really that's the sort of core that I've taken from Your Money, Your Life.
Okay.
That what is your enough point? Enoughness. What is that experience of enough? And how do we have that experience in every aspect of our lives? Enough friends, but not, a calendar full of appointments, where you just go from one person to the next and you repeat yourself. Or, how much is enough community service? I mean, there's some people who are junkies for community service. They can never say no to a committee. Oh, really? And it's like, or how much time do you have to give to your family? The demands of your grown children, 35 and 37. How much time how much is enough of everything? That's a really radical question because how much is enough food? I mean, right now I'm doing an experiment in the month of September of a 10-mile diet, which is I'm only eating within 10 miles of my home.
Wow.
And except for I have 4 exotics: caffeine, oil, salt, and lemons.
Okay. Okay.
And if I could get local vinegar, could let go of the lemons. But it sort of turns that food thing on its head. It's like, we look at food in such an abstract way. How many calories can I have in a day? What do the doctors say? What is the food pyramid? There's so many different ways to parse food, but not in terms of what actually am I experiencing? When am I full? What fills me?
Where's your enough?
What's my experience?
Okay.
And so I'm trying with these, taking the tools of Your Money, Your Life, which is simply tracking the flow. Now it could be tracking the flow of money, stuff, but it could be time. People track time. Take a look, every 15 minutes or every half hour, whatever they do, they just start tracking. What am I doing with my time? Because people say, I have no time. I'm always so busy, I have no time.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed, or I'm bored, or, we have an odd relationship with time. We're just so stressed about time, how it gets filled. So it just gives people the time to examine what's happening with time or food, or I have people look at their calendar. Just contemplate your calendar. What's there and why is it there? And so when you start to do this, with money, using these tools like, is the game worth the candle? Who is it who thinks I need to do all that stuff?
Sure.
What is that? What need is being filled by saying yes to those people? What need is being filled by, chowing down this food? What am I bringing to this situation? And so you start to wake up. Anything that's observed changes. I mean, this physics is telling us this.
Sure.
Observation
Just by
changes
seeing it,
reality.
It's not the same. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So really setting up tools to observe what's going on in your life to see whether, as I say, the life you're living is getting you, the results that you want.
I'm intrigued by your 10-mile diet because, of course, that's about eating local.
Yeah.
September's a good month. There's a lot of good harvest, and you live in a rural enough area where there's food here, which is very different from thinking about what's the composition of foods and so on. I'm curious what your sense, what's your just your experience of eating local is, or
It's
the
so
10-mile
great because
diet.
it started with a friend of mine who's a market gardener. Watched the takeoff on the Super Size Me, the Morgan
Yeah.
Spurlock thing.
Yeah.
And so she said, I should have somebody do Super Veggie Me, I should and she was looking for somebody who would be willing for a month to be simply fed out of her garden. The challenge for her, could I feed somebody, really? And nobody would do it because of their gazingas pins, their gazingas foods,
Yes,
the
yes,
gazingas pin
yes.
is like, oh, I couldn't give
live
up wine, I
without,
couldn't live without
yes,
this or that or the
yes.
other thing. And so
Yeah.
I just said, sure, because it was so natural to me, because anytime you experiment with a constraint, you're going to discover something about yourself and life.
Yes, yes.
So for me,
yes.
a fast, a fasting on anything is an opportunity to get really creative. And I think that pertains actually to the times we're living through, because we're now, I used to be characterized as somebody who taught about voluntary simplicity, but frankly, we're in that involuntary simplicity
Yes, we
time.
are.
People are
Yes.
being required to reconfigure their expectations of themselves, their expectations of others, expectations of life. They have to reconfigure their identity, as long as their identity is wrapped up in what they do and have. So we're in a big reconfiguration time, which is really based on the constraints of the moment. It's the economic constraints.
Yes, yes.
It's the resource flow constraints. Some people don't pay attention to it, but actually we are in a condition of overshoot on the planet. We're in a condition where we are using more every year than we have. We're going into ecological debt year by year. And it's like, when you go into credit card debt, year one, it seems to be working. Year two, it seems to be working.
Yeah.
But eventually you start to feel the edge of your known world, and you have no other tools to deal with it, because you've been living on borrowed time, borrowed credit, borrowed ecological reserves. So that's where we are. We are in this time when we're starting to face it, to experience, to feel the belt tightening, the natural belt tightening. And climate change is it's a factor, but nobody quite knows how that's going to land. You don't know whether I picked the right place or not to settle. So in this era of constraint, what I love about this 10-mile diet is just my own experiment, but also it's a piece of examining how do we feel, what can happen for us at a creative level when we're in a condition of constraint. When all you've got is zucchini. I mean, what can you do with zucchini? Rather than saying, "Oh God, all I have is zucchini," you say, "Oh man, I have this zucchini." Right now I'm making. I realized going into this diet that what I needed was crunch. Like, where are my crackers? So I'm doing dehydrating zucchini, and I call them Zackers. It's zucchini crackers, and. So I'm drying them.
Get you crunch.
Yeah, they give you crunch, and then I have Zookies, which is if I put a little honey, local honey, on a Zacker, it's a Zookie.
I love it.
So it's all good, and
what I see in that, we can take the news of the constraints. Life is built out of constraints.
Exactly.
You look at the natural world, part of why plants grow in particular ways is because constraints of the sun or the soil or the water and nutrient, all of that. If we can be playful and creative with it,
yes.
I think that we're going to come up with some astounding solutions, responses that challenge us and are fun and interesting. And
exactly. We're going to grow spiritually, we're going to grow materially, we're going to grow in skills, and we're going to grow in community. Just a 10-mile diet. Here you go.
Yeah.
So Tricia, my friend who's supplying me, we figure about 75% is just coming from her, and she's up late at night wondering, like, can I feed Vicky? It's like, and I think there's something to it, because some people say, oh, I want to grow all of my own food, but that's just an isolated experiment. What this is a relational. This is relational eating. So I located somebody who milks a cow in the area, and so I'm getting milk from that cow, and I located somebody who does beef in my area, so I have beef. So the cow, my milking day was the day after my diet started, you know, and it's like I must have milk in my tea in the morning. That's like, and so what I had to do is I knew the person who lived across the street from me also got milk from that cow. So it forced me into a vulnerability in relationship with my neighbor. And I said, you know, hi, Sarah, can I, you know, borrow a pint of milk until tomorrow? I'll pay you back. And so that weaves, the vulnerabilities weave community.
Nice
It
thought.
does. And so really, you know, the community arises from, not from giving necessarily. Of course, givingness is important. It comes from the vulnerability of receiving, of being a receiver.
It's a phenomenal thought.
It's reciprocity. That starts the wheel of reciprocity going. And so this is what I talk about in Your Money, Your Life, about financial independence. I say the first layer is the liberation of the mind. The second layer is getting out of debt, because if you're in debt and you lose your job, everything else slides out. The third layer is having savings equal to 6 months of expenses, so that you have a buffer. And so when you are in that chamber between jobs, between identities, between things, you have something to tide you over. It's having reserves. And then the next layer is skills, what I'm talking about. We're going to learn how to make Zackers, you know, whatever, you know, or you know, I'm probably going to have chickens in my yard eventually, you know, just based on this. You start to learn how to take care of yourself. You start to learn, I probably could change that faucet washer myself. I probably could, you know, repurpose this you know, dress that I have as something else. I could probably do it. You start to see how you could apply your intelligence and creativity and talent to things. And then another layer of financial independence is community, because if you have networks of trade, then it's all about meeting needs. And as you said earlier, you know, we have this fixation on, I have a need, and between me, that need and me getting that need met is money. If I don't have money, I don't get that need met. Well, then you start to see that there's so many ways that you get your needs met. And it's through this reciprocity and capacity building, skillfulness, and that is the blessing. And of course, you know, the whole ideology of the industrial growth economy, most particularly in North America and the United States, has been to separate you from community. You know, like the economy grows, it's like, you know, a couple getting married, that helps the economy. But when they get divorced, that really helps the economy, because now two whole households. It's another refrigerator, another freezer, another car. You know, so like the more separation you can create, the more necessity people have for packing products around them to make their lives work. So as we reverse this flow, as we have a less product-oriented, less packed, less stuffed life, calendar, time, food, money, as we unpack our lives, we're going to start to discover those networks of reciprocity. And guaranteed, you know, all studies in happiness say that happiness is relational. You know,
it strikes me that that's really where some foundational security, I mean, security's got to be a core word in here, because we've been taught that the only way to be secure is you have enough money stashed away, so if something happens, you pay for some, you know.
exactly.
So it's about, but if you have your network, then of people who have other connections, that provides its own, the safety net that has been shredded.
Exactly. And we here, another thing I've been involved in is Transition Whidbey. It's one of the early transition town groups that we started 3 years ago. And we've developed something called the Whidbey Community Exchange, and we have a unit of measure called a Terra. And fundamentally what it is it's like an online trading network. You know, it's like you join the community, you join the Whidbey Community Exchange, and then you're in the trading network. And so you can put anything that you need up there, and you can put anything that you have up there. And people will go into the exchange and they think, God, I need a skill saw. Does anybody have a skill saw? And there's somebody there who's willing not to sell their skill saw, but to rent it out to you, and for X number of terras. So that you do that exchange, and then you go in and you register the exchange, you know, so
Mm-hmm.
you go and pay somebody in the system, and you are ranked by other traders. You know, how was that trade? Was it an honest trade? Was it a good trade? Did it work? Did it not work? And so we're building a trading system with this unit that, you know, you could just,
It's a fictitious. I mean, yeah,
it's fictitious.
arbitrary,
It's sort
sure.
of like based on a dollar, but not really.
Yeah, yeah.
And right now, I mean, it's very, you know, it's about 150 people, I think, who are in that
Just
trading
starting.
network. But as the constraints come in,
Yes.
more and more people will discover that trading network. And people may not have dollars to have somebody build a sunroom on their house, but they could trade in terras. You know, they don't have a job, they can't trade in dollars. And so it's a backup system. And actually, it says in community we trust, in one another we trust.
Nice. And that's what you're living out.
It's disintermediation. It's like just where can you take money out of the system? Not because it's bad, evil, and wrong, but it's because it's everywhere where it shouldn't be. And start to have relational eating, relational shopping, you know, where,
Yes.
and I'm lucky, I live in a beautiful little South Whidbey Island. I live in the little town of Langley. There's 1,000 people who live there. And so I go down to get my mail, and I'm tended, you know, between the post office and the grocery store, there's at least 3 conversations that I have where my well-being is being tended. You know, where people are tracking me. It's this rebuilding of community. Community is the answer.
And what is really nice here in our last half second, you know, we have 10 seconds left here, is a lot of people tout community as the answer, but how we get there has been more mystified, and you've just broken down that mystery, you know, the reciprocity. And
Yes, and the
connection.
vulnerability and the connection, the asking, you know, the stepping up. And also knowing your boundaries. That's the other part of it, is to live in community, you know your boundaries. You know how much is enough. You know when you've given enough, too much, too little. And you can say no as well as yes. And if you can do that, if you can say no, then your yes means something.
Yes, 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 yes.
So-
No, no.
Yes,
yes,
yes, no,
yes.
yes. So
This is wonderful. Thank you. You've given us some really juicy material for people.
Yeah.
You're watching Peak Moment. I'm with Vicki Robin. We're discussing enough and vulnerability and community and abundance. Join us next time.